Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. What a weekend it's been. This is the NFL Wrap-Up Show with Joey Clinkscales, former general manager, former player, Brian LeBel, our NFL and NCAA analyst. I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Well, if you just finished watching the Rams in Seattle, you noticed that what a great game it was. And Seattle Seahawks end up representing the NFC, going to the Super Bowl. And also, you're going to have the Denver Broncos hosting against the New England Patriots. Without their starting quarterback, things were real rough for them. Denver ends up losing at home 10-7 to New England, and congratulations to both New England and Seattle. Gentlemen, we have two Super Bowl contenders that are going to get started here in 2 weeks. Let the games begin, so to speak, in terms of what's going to be happening, the hype, and everything that's associated with it. But, Joey, let's first and foremost, there were two great games today. A lot of defense. Four of the best top 10 defensive teams in the league were playing today. A lot to go over, but we'll start with the New England Patriots ending up winning a game that started out, it was just a little bit cold, but it turned into be one of those snowy messes that you say, these are one of those games that you remember pretty much for the rest of your life. Congratulations to the Patriots. Did anything stick out in your mind's eye in terms of just the initial game itself and what needed to happen? It was obviously David against Goliath, with Stidham going against what that terrific Patriot defense. But anything stick out before we get into the nuts and bolts of the game itself?
No, I think the weather did play a part in this in the second half, but I'm not saying that for just one team. I think for both teams, the weather played a factor. And when that happens, the team that can establish the line of scrimmage obviously will have a factor because you'll be able to run the ball more. And ultimately, I think the Patriots were able to do that better than the Broncos did today.
Well, both teams punted quite a bit. New England punted 8 times, Broncos with 6. They had a couple of turnovers as well. And Brian, obviously turnovers in the playoffs do not bode well for either of the organizations that were guilty of that. But for obvious reasons, important game for Denver. You don't have your starting quarterback. You lose him for about 3 or 4 months, according to the most recent medical expertise. Just give me your thoughts here, perspective, before we go into the nitty-gritty of it. Denver had a tremendous amount to overcome offensively, but they're only able to score 7 points in a championship game. That usually just doesn't bode well.
Yeah, kind of how we predicted earlier in the week when we talked about this game. But, the crazy thing is the Broncos had actually a pretty good start to this game. They kind of had the Patriots on the ropes. And I think the real turning point was near the end of the first half when Sean Payton decided to go for it on 4th down. I think it was 4th. It was a little less than 2 yards. I think they called it 4th and 1. It was a long one, but they decided to go for it instead of taking the points, the 3 points, the field goal. Borealis, who's been pretty consistent throughout the season, is almost automatic from that distance where they were at. They were just on the cusp of the red zone, if not mistaken. But that was kind of the turning point in the game, because then the Patriots were able to go down, score. They flipped momentum. It just, we knew this was going to be a really ugly game from an offensive standpoint because the Broncos were going to try to make it that since they're without their quarterback. But the second half, the weather came into play, and it was a field position, a punt, and just hope to God your guy hangs onto the ball and can make a fair catch, or the ball goes out of bounds every time it's kicked.
Yeah, a lot of special teams today that we can discuss. But, Joey, first and foremost, each team starts with a 3 and out. Then the Broncos move down the field, a very short drive, 5 plays, 59 yards. They score in 1 minute and 41 seconds. They take the lead. And New England has to punt after that. I mean, the momentum had changed. It had gone in Denver's favor. Bend don't break, I guess, if you're a Patriot. Just wait for things to happen. Broncos couldn't move. They go 7 plays and punt, and the downs, and then another fumble, and obviously another punt. The Broncos missed a field goal in the first half. There were a couple of opportunities there, but when you don't hold on to the football, there's a big difference in the ball game, obviously, especially in playoff football. You've got to be able to keep a hold of the football.
Well, I think the Broncos had a small margin for error in this game because they were without Bo Nix. I think Stidham got in the rhythm early. He had the deep pass down the field for a big play, which led to the touchdown. So I think he was playing pretty good early. Again, he got into a rhythm. He was comfortable. He was able to make plays with his legs a couple times there. But then the momentum kind of changed. There was a big sack up the middle by the Patriots. The Patriots started getting pressure on the outside. It may sit him uncomfortable. They got him off the spot a lot. So I think the turnover started after that. And then I understand why Sean Payton kind of went for it, because he knew that this was going to be a close game. You know, he needed to find a way to keep the momentum going. So he took a chance on 4th and 1.5 to try to get the first down rather than kick the field goal, because I think he thought that the points would be somewhat at a premium and he wanted to get a lead. But once that didn't happen, you know, the Broncos right now aren't, especially with Stidham, they weren't set up to be a comeback type team. And, you know, that's kind of what doomed them. You know, again, their defense, the Broncos defense was good enough, obviously, to win this game. But then again, the second half, once the winter conditions came in and all the snow, then it became a field position game. And hopefully you don't turn the ball over in your own territory and make it short, because both kickers miss kicks all day. Yeah. So, you know, that was a part of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Will Lutz, who's, you know, been so reliable with Sean Payton, Brian, over the years, not just in Denver, but obviously with New Orleans. He was 0 for 2 today. And, you know, when you lose by 3, you make one of those field goals, you make them both, you're actually winning the game and you're going to the Super Bowl. I'm not blaming anything on Will. Jarrett Stidham's stats are looking like this, folks. 17 of 31. So just a little bit better than 50%. 133 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times. But Drake May, Brian, he was 10 for 21. So actually he was less than 50%, 86 yards. He averaged only 4.1 yards per completion, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But obviously he rushed for 65 yards, and he had that important touchdown to put, you know, the Patriots back into the ballgame and to tie it. In a game that was so desperately in need of the Broncos having to play well at the quarterback position, I could almost equally say, well, you got almost nothing out of your quarterback today if you're New England. I know you're going to the Super Bowl, but there's not a whole lot to hang your hat on in terms of what you were able to do today. Doesn't matter. They're going. All right. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that they just got by the hair on their chinny chin chin, and having a great defense certainly helps.
Yeah. I think coming into this one, I don't think they took a lot of shots offensively. I think they knew what this game was going to be. I think Denver knew what this game was going to be. It's going to be field position. Let's try to make the new guy make a mistake. And that was kind of the difference of the game, right? That little Stidham, the screen wasn't there. He double pumps. He tries to get the ball out. He ends up trying to push it. And what really should have been a defensive touchdown, because, you know, they blew it dead on the field because they called it incomplete and they can't overturn it. You know, it's a weird, you know, situation. But, you know, in hindsight, the Broncos defense wouldn't have given up a touchdown if that had been ruled correctly. So I mean, this is arguably, I think, the best unit in football, the Broncos, top to bottom. They're very, very good on defense across the board. There's not really any weaknesses. They're well coached. They fly all over the field. They got a ton of talent, but it's just one of those things where, unfortunately for them, they were out there without their leader. They're without Bo Nix. And we kind of mentioned last week, we said, hey, they're going to have to run the ball at least a little bit, right? Take some pressure off of Stidham, try to get the Patriots at least back up a little bit, right? Let's let this make it so the safeties can't come in the box every play. And there was another week. They couldn't do it last week, really, Bo Nix either, but they couldn't run the ball very well. And, you know, it was just – that was kind of an Achilles heel they've had for a while. The defense overshadowed that. Bo Nix played decently well in a lot of cases to overshadow that. But the run game being non-existent was an issue. I know the Patriots weren't elite, right? Henderson only touched the ball, I think, 3 times. Ramondre Stevenson had a pretty good game, but they didn't do anything crazy on the ground. I think they had like 150 total yards. So
141, you know, pretty close, right?
Kudos to, you know, I think when the Patriots needed 5 or 6 yards on the ground, they could get it, and the Broncos unfortunately just couldn't, because I think Drake May only had 85 passing yards. It wasn't a great game for him. So they ran the ball, they played defense. Both these teams coming in, that was the goal. But unfortunately for the Broncos, they had the 2 mistakes and it ended up costing them.
Well, you got 2 mistakes, Joey, and you go into the half. You're tied at 7. Here's the interesting point in the ball game for me. You come out in the third quarter, you have a 9.5-minute drive, 16 plays, you get a field goal out of it, and then the scoring's done for the rest of the game. I know the weather, and you mentioned that, Joey, a couple of times, but really I thought Denver had at least an opportunity, several different possessions. They only had 1 possession in the third quarter. That was about a minute and 39-second drive, 5 plays, 6 plays, whatever it was, and then they're done. and then another 3-4 minute drive there by New England. But they have 4 possessions in the fourth quarter, and they can't get anything out of it. They did have a missed field goal, but no points. So plenty of opportunities, and in a close game like that, obviously when your offense is just struggling as mightily as Denver's was, you give kudos to the Patriot defense. Obviously, they played well enough to not only earn the spot and get to go to the Super Bowl, but for obvious reasons, winning that game with what you had in front of you, the weather, a team that really was desperate to score. They struggled with special teams and some other things. You held on, and you only gave up 7 points in the AFC Championship game. Well done.
Yeah, I think the Patriots played a little bit of old school football. They knew with the weather. I mean, everybody knew with the weather coming in. I mean, the weather report said the second half that there was a chance that would be snow coming in. So everybody knew that if you needed to score in the first half, because in the second half, scoring would probably be tough to come by.
Sure.
And I think the Patriots did a lot of the things they needed to do. Again, the quarterback only threw for 86 yards, which is an anomaly. That won't happen again. It hadn't happened before this. It probably won't happen again because of the weather. However, he made some timely throws when he needed to, and I think he rushed for 60, 65 yards on the ground. So he made some plays with his feet, especially in the second half, that really helped them control the time of possession with the clock. Again, doing the things to win football games, not turning the ball over, controlling the line of scrimmage, making timely third downs, controlling defensively. They made plays on defense. They stopped the big plays after the one, and they blitzed the quarterback, a new quarterback, when they needed to, especially in the first half, but a little less in the second half because they didn't want to get somebody slide beat, just like what some of the things that happened from a special team perspective. So I think the Patriots played a really sound and smart game, despite what the score indicates.
Yeah, I'm not going to let certain things happen. I'm going to make it real difficult on him in the first half, and then if he dares to beat us with what we've got, we're going to play our best defense that we possibly can. We're going to cover our guys and mix it up a little bit of zone and obviously some man-to-man, and it worked.
They were going to stop the run. They were determined to stop the run, and if Jarrett Stidham beat him, then he beat him.
Then he beat you. Yeah, right. Yeah. Roger Clemens used to say, if I throw my best pitch and you can hit it, good for you, right? I'm going to get my best defensive strategy. I'm going to hold you to 79 yards in a championship game. Your quarterback's going to only rush for 133. You got a couple of turnovers, and 10-7 is the final. Brian, first, before we move on, Denver did have some chances, but obviously with the weather and the wind, that's a big thing. The wind and then the blowing snow and all that kind of stuff. It was critical that they got something going early. They did on their second drive, but then nothing else was able to jive for them at all. What do you take away? You mentioned how good they are top to bottom. They don't need to break anything up, do they? They just need a healthy quarterback, pretty much.
Yeah, I think they're fine. I think they could improve the offensive line a little bit. I think you need to run the ball a little bit better and kind of make things a little easier for Bo Nix and that receiving corps. But, kudos to the Broncos coaching staff and Sean Payton, because they scripted a really good first 15, right? They came out and they said, hey, like Joey said, the Patriots are going to try to stop the run. They're not going to expect us to throw the football down the field with a quarterback who hasn't started a game in 3 years? So they did. They took a couple shots. They were ballsy. It worked out. That play action rollout in the end zone that they had for the first score of the game. I was looking, I was like, man, if this is the team that comes out, they're going to win this game because the defense is good enough to kind of support this. But after that, when the weather became a factor and they kind of went through their scripted plays and they kind of had to have Jared improvise and do what he needed to do. But it just, once the Patriots had kind of seen everything they were doing offensively, they could adjust, and it just, they couldn't do anything else offensively. So it was, the coaching staff did a pretty good job. I mean, limited resources. If Bo Nix plays in this game, it's probably a different result, because I think the Broncos today, for the most part, were the better team on the football field. It's just Patriots were healthier. They ran the ball better, and they didn't turn it over. That's kind of the three big things with football, right? You got to run the ball, play defense, and take care of it.
Yeah, and time of possession, obviously, getting those first downs when your quarterback can scramble and keep the drive alive and, take the time off the clock. And that became a time management situation. That whole game was, the second half was, how do we get this down to 0 as quickly as we can?
Well,
Talk a little bit.
I could,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, real quick. I'll just interject one more time. The Patriots had 12 total first downs on the day, and they had 10 of them rushing. They had 10 of them on the ground.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was I think the Broncos had 3 rushing first downs. So they put a lot of pressure on Stidham, and they made him beat him with his arm, and it worked.
Right. Yeah, he just wasn't ready to do it. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. He's in the National Football League, but to be game ready in a championship game, granted it was a home, and granted he knew for a full week, that he was going to get the opportunity to do this. But yeah, still very very tough under pressure. And I don't think he's a failure in any way, shape, or form. But congratulations again to New England, Joey. When they get back, right, they're probably landing now. It's a busy week for them, isn't it? I mean, you're at home for your first 7 or 8 days. Then you travel, Monday? You get there for your Tuesday press conferences, which is a circus unto itself. But talk a little bit about how you game plan right now. They probably were watching via satellite or Wi-Fi the Seattle-LA Rams game, but you just go a little bit over the business aspect of what the coaches, what the organization has to prep for, what the players, obviously, they got to pack a week's worth of clothes and get ready to go down to Miami. But just express some of the things from what your knowledge is about the whole league coming together. And you've really got 5 or 6 days to get ready for this game at home in your own bed. And then everything else after that, it's just chaotic, to say the least. But Vrabel has an advantage because he's done this so many times that I think is an unspoken plus for what New England's going to have to experience. I think he's going to have a very interesting, maybe Belichick-like cadence with what he's going to do with the practices, and then obviously once they get into town.
Yeah, I think you are. I don't think you want to change up a whole lot, though. I kept hearing a phrase today that somebody was using about don't change up the ingredients in the macaroni and cheese. I mean, if it's good, don't change it up. So I don't think Vrabel's going to change up a whole lot from the standpoint of how they do practice. But from an administration standpoint, you'll have some people going out to California this upcoming week that's in the building. Not necessarily football operations people, but other people, because it's a big week, yada, yada, yada. But for the team, half the pro personnel department has already scouted and has been scouting the Rams. The other half was scouting the Seahawks. So now they know who the opponent is. They can go ahead and put their all their concerns with the Seahawks. The football staff will probably on the plane ride back, which that's from Denver to back to Boston is probably 5 hours. It's probably a 5-hour flight that they're looking at, 4.5, 5 hours, especially in this weather, assuming they're not delayed. And usually from the time the game ends to the time we get on the buses to go to the airport, it's an hour and a half.
Yep.
So that being said, they're in the air now. So yeah, they're not back yet, but they're in flight now. And the coaches they already know who won the game. So they've already started to at least initially look at the Seahawks, trying to figure out, just looking at the game, looking at weaknesses, trying to figure some things out. And that will continue, obviously, on the off day the players will have. And they'll probably have 2 days off this week. I'm assuming they'll probably, with the exception of injuries, the Patriots will probably come back in on Tuesday and practice, have meetings Tuesday, run through a little bit of something, and have a real practice starting on Wednesday. Try to heal up some of those guys that are hurt or injured, what have you, and so they'll go from there. And that's with both teams. Seattle will do the same thing. They probably had, and again, they both had scouts at each other's game. So everybody had scouts at everybody else's game. So
yes,
you have people there live. And again, the cadence and all that, the things you used to be able to pick up in the past is really difficult now, especially when you're in a loud environment. And, most of the time you're going on a silent count anyway. So things are different and everything is videoed. So it'll be a long week. It'll be a fun week for those guys, because you're the last 2 teams standing. You're the last 2 teams standing, okay? And somebody's going to go home excited, and somebody's going to go home disappointed. and that's just the reality of what we signed up for.
Yeah, real quick before I go to Brian, one of the things of interest would be you mentioned that you're going to get a day off. There's not going to be any more days off. You may not going to be on your feet a whole heck of a lot. There's no need to do that. You're not going to, there's no full pads practicing. You're just going to make sure you get your mental reps and know what you're supposed to be doing. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to certainly be one of those things. They're going to continue practicing in the same vein that they have for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the regular season, and obviously through to the playoffs. They know what they're doing, but this is now everybody will watch 2, 3, 7 reels of film on Seattle or on New England. They're going to know each other inside and out from a video perspective, and then what their assignment's going to be. Tell me a little bit, just confirm with me on that one that, the mental reps are going to be more important than the physical reps.
Oh yeah, I mean that probably won't be, like you said, there probably won't be any full padded practices. I mean, but there'll be high tempo practices. I mean, so yeah, there'll be very little contact because you don't want to get anybody hurt, but they'll be going full speed for sure. And they'll be getting the sweat in, and they'll be going at it pretty good. But yeah, it's about knowing your assignments. Okay, so now this is the last game. You got to know your assignment. You got to know your opponent. You got to know his strengths and his weaknesses. You got to know how he sleeps at night. You got to know if he gets up in the middle of the night and fix a bottle for his child. You need to know as much as possible about the person you're playing, because this is the biggest game of your life.
Yeah, no kidding. Everybody, batten down the hatches. Get yourself ready to go. Brian, before we move on to the next game, obviously, I mentioned this to Joey a moment ago. New England has the advantage in terms of their history over the past 25 years. For them to get back, I think they're on house money, right? Nobody was expecting them to get here, except maybe the guys in that building. They've had a great season for obvious reasons. Something happened and clicked in their locker room, in their practice facility, in 2-a-day practices that they may have had where they go, we're going to be good enough to be able to do this. And seeds were planted. Now that they're there, what's the advantage? Even though nobody was with Belichick and Brady and Gronkowski and everyone that was a part of the past, with the exception of Rabel and maybe a couple of the coaches, what's the advantage right now for them in terms of, even though they're guys that have never played before, they're with one of these head coaches that has. He's got a couple of rings, and their confidence level going into this game, obviously going to Denver and winning on the road the way that they did, there's a certain prestige that you can carry with you. You can have your chest out a little bit, but there's still more work to do. But what's the advantage there in your mind's eye for New England where they are right now?
I think maybe just a preparation side, right? Just because how many people are still, like Joey mentioned earlier, in the upper echelon of the organization that have been here, right? There's a lot of people that are still getting New England Patriots paychecks that have been here, right? They've been here plenty of times, obviously. So I think knowing what it's like to be there and winning the thing is a big deal, right? We're just gonna say, hey, let's cut and paste, right? It worked when we were there before. Let's just try to do everything we possibly could. Now it's a different team, right? It's a very young team. This Patriots team is not very experienced in a lot of positions. I think that's the reason why a lot of people, it's so surprising, right? Drake May's very, very young. The offensive line is young. The running back room is pretty young. So top to bottom, it's still going to be, I think, an uphill battle, because I think the Seahawks are a little older. They're a little more veteran leadership on that side. But having a head coach who's not just been there but won as a player, and kind of being able to reiterate, okay, this is what I did, right? This is where I made a mistake, or this is what I did that helped me, or just the different nuances of it. I think that is obviously going to be a calming effect. Maybe not advantage, but it's going to calm the younger guys, and I think it's going to help them going into the week. But once they run out of the tunnel and the lights are on, and before you know it, it's going to be 2 weeks, and they're going to be out there. It's a whole different ballgame. It's going to be a whole different experience. And then once you actually start hitting, and once the game actually starts, I think you're going to have to see it's whoever's going to be better on the field. It's obviously going to be more magnified, but I think it's going to be two pretty evenly matched teams. I think Seattle's probably a little better defensively, but what's going to end up showing on the field is which team is better. And, I think which team is better coached and better adapt to, the situation at hand, which is the biggest game for most of these guys in their life.
Well, congratulations to congratulations to New England. They win at Denver. 10-7 is the final. Broncos gave everything they had with what they got. They didn't have their starting quarterback, but they sure played well. Going to NFC or AFC Championship game and only give up 10 points, not a bad job. Good Good season for the Broncos, but not good enough to go to the Super Bowl. That honor goes to the New England Patriots. Congratulations to them. The other team that we're going to talk about, the Rams, end up going to Seattle. Seahawks hold on to win. They had a 17-13 halftime lead. Both teams scored 2 touchdowns each in the third quarter. Neither team scored in the fourth, and Seattle holds on, and they end up winning 31-27 as the final there. Joey, obviously a great game, back and forth. A lot of reasons to celebrate the offenses. Both teams had good defenses. The Rams were top 10, and Seattle had the number 1 defense going into the league in terms of the least amount of points given up on average. Anything in particular about this game that you go, man, I got all my money's worth when I wanted to watch this one? Popcorn, spilled all over the couch and everything like that. I mean, some great plays left and right. A good game, and Seattle holds on to win, and they are the NFC champion, and they get to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, this was an amazing game. It was fun to watch. It played true to what we expected in some aspects. In other aspects, it was completely different, such as, well, it stayed true to the fact that the Rams have one of the worst special teams in the National Football League. I mean, they fired their special teams coach mid-season, and then in the game, really maybe the determining factor in the game is when the punt returner dropped a punt and deep in their own end zone, and that led to a touchdown, and ultimately, from a scoring perspective, that may have been the determining factor in the game. But all that being said, defensively, you expected Seattle to play great defense, and they did for the most part. But you have to understand, the score was 31-27, and this is the third time these teams have played each other. So once you play a team a lot, you understand their strengths, you understand their weaknesses. And Stafford threw for probably 370 today. I mean, he had a great game, with no turnovers. I mean, ultimately, the clock ran out. It would have ran out on one team either way, because the other quarterback, he grew up today. He played extremely well. Again, he had 3 touchdowns and no turnovers, and over 340, 350. I mean, so he grew up a lot today, Sam Darnold. So very interesting. And the running back for Seattle keeps making plays. He keeps making plays. He did a great job today.
Brian, Joey started with a very interesting point. Not only was the Rams special teams one of the poorer ones in the league, they've had troubles all year long, but you go against a Seahawk team that's one of the best special teams. I love the way those guys fly around. Their linebackers, their tight ends, the running backs, the guys that do all the blocking. They are a very tight group. You can see the way that they applaud each other. Even though the runner may have got 30 yards, they applaud each other, and then they'll go applaud him. They acknowledge when they do a great job. And obviously special teams, it's not a full third of the game, but it's about 20%, right? And all the plays that you have, they are a very good group. Anything that sticks out in your mind's eye before the game starts that you needed to see from either one of those teams, Seattle or Los Angeles, that was impressive to you because you got to see it during the game as well?
I don't think there was a ton. These two, this is the third time they've played. These two guys, they know each other very, very well, right? It's the ins and outs. They love to run this. They're going to do this a lot. You're going to see a lot of this formation. There's not a lot you can do to kind of, get them off their game and to try to mix them up. So it's our best against your best. You know what we're doing. We know what you're doing. Let's see who wins the game. And impressively enough, I think, Sam Darnold playing toe-to-toe with Matthew Stafford today was a big deal, right? That's huge for him, for his confidence going forward, and even for Seattle, right? Because he's still a relatively young guy. I think he's their quarterback going forward, and I think they have a phenomenal opportunity to win a Super Bowl here in 2 weeks. But the passing game was spectacular. They ran the ball not great, but when they needed to, right? Kenneth Walker was picking up first downs, especially on that last drive where they need to milk the clock, and they can get 4 or 5 yards. You're pushing the pile, and I think when you start to see that, it's more so of your guys want it more, right? Especially on like the offense and defensive front. If you're not able to get a push up front, I think a lot of it has to do with just the want to, just the attitude. And I think it plays into what you said with the special team stuff, right? These guys love playing with each other, love playing for these coaches. And the whole game, even the third, fourth quarter, the first kick, they're fired up every play. I know we had I can't remember who it was on defense for Seattle, but they had the unsportsmanlike. It almost ended up costing them the game. But
27.
It was just, they're fired up left and right. And it was a calm, you know what I mean? No, they weren't playing out of their minds, but they were very, very calm. And when they make the play, they're looking to high five somebody. They're looking as a unit. They're gang tackling. They're getting to the ball. When Walker, they're trying to salt out the clock. They got 3-4 guys are coming up behind him and pushing him forward. Right? Let's get 1, 2, 3 extra yards. And it's just, watching some of the DBs in the back that see that, right? You finally get the ball carried to the ground, but you can kind of see their demeanor, right? They kind of look a little sad. They look a little defeated. And I think that was more so, especially at the end of the game. I think that was a big deal for Seattle because there were a couple instances where the Rams were driving and they answered right back, and it was a back and forth game, and they're a more experienced group. And I'd say offensively they might be a little more talented, but Seattle took all the punches and they gave it right back. They gave them everything they could handle. And it was for this team, I think there's a lot of momentum. And I think there was a point a couple weeks ago, and it may have been against these Rams on that Thursday night game, where they kind of looked inward and said, hey, we're a pretty good football team and we can beat anybody. And they believe that now. The coaching staff has instilled that. They believe they can beat anybody. And you got guys like Sam Darnold and Leonard Williams who came from the Jets who were almost castaways, right? Hey, you can't win here. You don't know if you're ever going to win. And I remember a lot of people talk about Sam Darnold a couple years ago. He had maybe one of the worst games, if not the worst game of his career. I think it was in prime time against the New England Patriots, ironically, where he's throwing interceptions left and right. And they caught him on a hot mic saying he's seeing ghosts. And I think there was a real fear that they're like, hey, I don't know if this guy's ever be able to bounce back and play quarterback again. But he got, I think he's got a great team. And I think you go back to the first game they had against the Rams where he had all those interceptions, and every single guy, if you go, back and listen to what the coaches were saying and the players were saying at the end of, I think the post-game stuff where, the media is trying to, hey, Sam played a bad game, right? Do you think you can win with them going forward? They're all shutting it down like, no. We can still win. We need Sam on our team. He can lead us to the promised land. And that's exactly where they are now. And it's all paid off. And this unit as a whole they're going to be very, very difficult to deal with. And I'm not going to be surprised in 2 weeks if they're not hoisting the Lombardi Trophy.
They are a very good team. They're 8th in passing, 10th in rushing, 3rd in total scoring, and 1st in defense. Joey, in today's game, they gave up 479 yards to the Rams, but they did get a turnover. They didn't have one themselves. They had 6 penalties, Seattle did. Rams had 4. Here's where I think, one of the things that helps you win a game or it'll lose it for you. Seattle was 7 out of 13 on third down, so just under 50%. Actually, just over 50%, excuse me. Rams were 1 for 8 on third down. Rams were 1 for 2 on fourth down when they went for it, 2 for 3 in the red zone. But the time of possession ended up going in Seattle's favor. And a little difference, what do you need? I think Seattle's defense, even though they gave up that taunting 15-yard penalty, and just a few plays later when they had the sack, I know the fans were just screaming for
it was a little
Rams player who wasn't taunting anybody. He was celebrating in his own way, which is different. When you're on the bench of your opponent and you're talking to somebody, you might get a flag, and he ended up doing that. But Joey, a lot of questions here right now, but let's give Seattle all the credit where it's due. What did they do well enough to go, you know what, they should be going to the Super Bowl because they impressed you with fill in that blank? Well,
Seattle had more explosive plays than they had penalties, I believe. I mean, they were penalized, what'd you say? Six times. And I would venture to say they probably had 6 to 7 explosive plays, which are plays greater than 15 yards. So they were able to do some things versus this Rams defense who at least in the middle of the season were playing really well. Toward the end of the season, if you took their stats from like week 9 through the rest of the season, they were probably a bottom half defense, where the first half of the season they were a top half defense. But that being said, Seattle, they were able to run the ball when they needed to. Darnold was able to do what he needed to. Passing the ball again, he threw for 340 something in the air, which is amazing for a guy that has a core ab injury. He's playing great. He was able to get off the spot, get out of the pocket, roll out on play action, and make some key throws accurately. And then defensively, they were able to do some things defensively to get after Darnold, although he wasn't sacked that many times. They did pressure him a lot, made him get rid of the ball sooner than he wanted to at times. But that quarterback is a special quarterback who was on the other side. He was a special quarterback. And, it's not many times when he's going to throw for 370 yards and they lose the football game. So that's a credit. That's a credit to the things that Seattle can do defensively, went with controlling the run when they needed to, getting big stops. And again, on third down, the Rams were 1 for 8. I bet that's probably the only time all season, even in the other two games, that they were 1 for 8 on third down. So on key downs, they were able to get off the field. That's Seattle.
Brian, a lot of things that happened that I was kind of pleased with. Joey mentioned the passing. Puka Nacua had 9 receptions, 165 yards, and a touchdown. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who you've talked about ever since he came into the league, what a tremendous game he has. The hit that he took over the middle on the post route where he gets hit at about the 22, 21-yard line. He's got a gash in his left shoulder, way up high. It was just slightly above the pads, and there was times where he moved around. He didn't touch it. He didn't grab it. I think Puka hurt his shoulder in the second quarter, maybe early in the third. He was bent over a little bit. Guys playing hurt, giving everything they have. But Jackson, what an amazing game, and a tough guy. And, Burkhardt and Brady both knew that when he's in the backfield, we're going to throw to him. And the Rams still couldn't stop him. So a lot of things that were exciting in terms of Bobo getting a pass and Cooper Kupp getting his name called out a few times. But an elite group of receivers, in my opinion, with Seattle, and a really good offensive line that is protecting their quarterback as good as they could today. Sam had to sprint for his life a couple of times, but give me some things that impressed you about Seattle, especially from an offensive perspective, to go, they earned their spot to be in the Super Bowl today.
Well, I know Cooper Kupp hasn't been the same guy that he was a couple of years ago with the Rams, where he's the offensive player of the year, but they brought him in to do what he did today, right? In games like this, the leadership, the veteran side of it. I don't need you to go out and have 1,600 yards and 12 touchdowns, but when we're hosting the NFC title game, I need you to get a couple key third downs, and I need you to help us out in the red zone. He did that today, right? I think Bobo was, effective as they used him. It's a great play. I think it's a team morale booster as well, right? When some of these kind of backup guys are able to come in and contribute, make plays. JSN is still, I don't know if you have him as the best receiver in the league, because I think obviously you look at, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are kind of the staple, but I saw a different element.
Guys. He can play with every one of those guys.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Yeah. And I agree with that, but going up and putting his body on the line, knowing he was going to get hit, right? Understanding, hey, I need to make this catch because we need these points, right? So let me go down the field and make a play. Be able to hop back up, be able to just consistently, right? You have to worry about him the whole game. You have to double team him. You have to know where he is. And even when you scheme for him, like you said, when they knew where he's going, the motion's coming in, whatever it is, they knew, and they still couldn't stop him. But I think he's really, shown not just the talent he has, but kind of the leadership, right? You wouldn't expect him, because you have Cooper Kupp in that receiver room, which is tremendous. You don't need the leadership from him, but I think he's grown more as a player, and I think it's made him a little bit better. And I think he's a huge reason why this Seattle offense. We give Sam Darnold his flowers to be able to come back, but JSN has been tremendous. He has been the staple of this team. And even when the run game was poor at times early on in the season, he was able to shoulder the load, no pun intended, as far as the hit he took. But his numbers are tremendous, and they keep winning games, and he's a huge reason for it.
Kenneth Walker, Joey, 62 yards of the 75. When he's not in the ball game, they were not able to run the ball at all. Is that a concern for you going into the Super Bowl in 2 weeks?
Not really. I mean, they played a pretty balanced game. Despite him only rushing for 62 yards, in the first half, he really ran the ball well. Probably better in the first half than in the second half. He did. He's really, and he's hard to bring down. He's really elusive. He showed the ability to make the first guy miss in the backfield and get the tough yards. And sometimes that being able to go second and 6 rather than 2nd and 8 makes a big difference. And he was able to do that. And, he made a couple nice catches on
yeah, he had 4 receptions coming out of the backfield. Yeah, great dump off guy. Yeah.
Absolutely. So he's able to do some things. And again, some of those short catches are like runs. If you can make a catch, especially out of the backfield in this 2nd and 5, then that's just like a run. I mean, that still puts you in a winning down and distance category. So I like a lot of what I saw in him. I think he's probably a lesser blocker than
Charbonnet. Yeah.
Charbonnet, but that really wasn't a big factor today. because I think the way the Rams blitz, they blitz more from the outside than rather from the inside. That way he could chip and still get out in coverage. But that being said, they ran a lot of screen actions today, and I'm talking about Seattle and taking the receiver and moving him outside or moving the receiver in the backfield so they can create a matchup different than every time. Like Brady said on the telecast, they was going to throw him the ball. And they did that. But both teams did that some. They did that with Puka as well on the other side. So, again, both teams knew exactly what each other was going to do. And had they reacted to that, then there would have been a play right behind the guy that's coming up to make the tackle. So everybody knows the adjustments that are going on. And, you have to choose your poison.
Do either I'm not positive. It's Charbonnet. Is there any chance at all that he's back in time for the Super Bowl, or is he done for the season?
ACL, he's out.
He's not. That's right. Okay, please forgive me for that. All right, Brian. Stafford put the ball on the ground once. It was near him. He was sacked. It could have been a face mask. They didn't call it. Kobe Parkinson, he had the ball on the ground, but Xavier Smith, the punt returner, one bounced off his face mask. He was able to get it. The next one bounces and he falls, trips over his feet going backwards. I thought he should have just let it go over his head. Unfortunately, Rams may not have room on the plane for him to come home, and his locker will certainly be cleaned out before any of the others. Just an unfortunate situation, but in a game as important as that, one of the factors was the turnover, and that was the only one. And the Seahawks were able to score the following play, and guess what? That's they won by that difference in the ball game.
Well, I think after that last one, they had Kyron Williams out there fielding kicks, if I'm not mistaken.
He was done. Mentally, they basically told him.
But I think after the first one, you kind of have to, make the decision. I think that's what Joey mentioned with the special team stuff earlier, right? I think it's not necessarily, if you have a bad special teams, it's not necessarily your players are bad. Now, you might have a team that doesn't have as much talent, but typically it's coaching, right? Special team stuff is going to be coaching. Yep. It's just paying attention to detail. It's just everybody, because a lot of it's just a lane assignment and going down and covering kick. It's nothing too complex, but being able to get everybody on the same page, working as a unit, it's very important. And unfortunately, it happens. Muff punts happen all the time, right? This isn't like a surprising thing, but in a game like this, where it was as close as it was against two very, very good teams and a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, you're going to remember it a little bit more. And it's unfortunate. That's how it ends up. I can't remember who it was, but years ago, when the last time the Giants went to the Super Bowl, I can't remember the kick returner, but the punt returner for the 49ers muffed a kick too, right? And it was a similar situation. It was in overtime. They had a chance to go down and win the game. And you hate it for the guys, right? You absolutely do. It's just unfortunate. It's one of those things where kind of your eyes get big after the first one. I think it got to him. I think he had the yips, and unfortunately, it's a muff kick, and it really ends up costing him. I'm not gonna say it cost him the game, but it cost him points, and it cost him, realistically, a chance to go down and take the lead and maybe win the game. But it's just unfortunate.
They were playing from behind from that point on, and again, I wish the man well. Xavier Smith is in the National Football League, and I'm not. So he's a lot better than I am, and he's got a position that is very it's
tough.
hit and miss.
Yeah, very tough.
If you do it right, you're going to be something else. What's his name? Proctor with Dallas. He's unbelievable, right? But don't drop the ball. That's your only it's your only job. Don't drop the ball. Joey, before we go any further, congratulations to Seattle. Anything else you want to say? Because if you're okay with the Seahawks and the Patriots now, or you have any other comments, I want to hear them. But if you don't, I want to know early prognostication. What are you thinking between this game? The two of the three best defenses in the National Football League are going to be playing each other for the Super Bowl championship.
Well, I'll tell you what. I came out of this game thinking that Seattle would win this game. Win the Super Bowl. By the point spread would probably be Seattle by probably 3.5 is what I'm guessing. But if Seattle's offense play like they played this game, and the defense continues to cause havoc, I'm gonna predict this. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a blowout because I don't think so, but it's gonna be at least a 7-point game, if not a 10-point game.
Do me a real quick favor before I go to Brian. What advantage does Seattle have knowing that they're playing in a division stadium for the Super Bowl. And please forgive me, folks. I'm sorry. I said Miami earlier. The Super Bowl's not in Miami. The NCAA championship, it was in Miami. I'm sorry. I got them mixed up. Please forgive me. They're going to be in Levi Stadium. They're in San Jose. They've played there for the last 20 years, ever since the stadium was built. They're familiar with the facility. They're probably, I mean, the 49ers practice facility is literally a stone's throw from where the stadium is. Is that an advantage for Seattle, knowing that they can be more comfortable there as opposed to, where's New England? Are they going to go to Stanford? Where they go to Cal? Where are they going to practice?
Probably they'll probably practice at one of the two, probably at Stanford. I'm sure one of the teams will practice at Stanford. It'll be interesting. And I'm not sure either one of them will practice at the 49ers facility, because the 49ers facility is a rock stones from the stadium. So I'm not sure they want anybody that close to the stadium. So somebody might practice at San Jose State. That's my guess. San Jose State and probably Stanford. So
okay.
The stadium's in Santa Clara. Somebody be in San Jose. Somebody will be on the other side of the bay.
Yeah. All right, Brian, your thoughts here and perspective about, Seattle, New England going against each other. The records speak for themselves. The defenses speak for themselves. The offenses both can produce. It's just a matter of what's going to happen. Your early prognostication on this one.
I'm going to need to see Drake May play like the MVP of the league. I think he's going to have to, right? I think he's going to have to make some plays, avoid turnovers, right? I think that's the key going forward. He's got to take care of the football. He did a pretty good job of that today. The plus for them is they just played the best defense in the league and they beat them, right? So at least they're going to be able to say, okay, what we can kind of expect. And I think coming into this game, funny enough, not given the history of the Patriots being the Super Bowl, I think they're coming in a little under the radar. I don't think a lot of people are going to be, Seattle should be favored. I think they are. I think they're 4.5-point favorites right now, like Joey mentioned. But it's just the reason for that is not necessarily quarterback play, because I think if you put these two guys side by side, I think Drake May's had a better season. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of guys would probably take Drake May if they're starting a franchise over Sam Darnold. I think I probably would. But it's the defenses, and I think just the collective of the team, the Patriots being a little bit younger. I think Seattle probably having a little bit more talent. So I think that's going to be the key there. But you got to play the game, right? You don't play the game on paper, you play it on turf. And they're going to have to line up. They're going to have to go out and, whoever wants it, whether it's Seattle or New England, they're going to have to play a better football game than the team across from them. I think it's still going to be a good game. I think it'll be another maybe lower scoring affair like we've seen with a lot of these, especially on the AFC side. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good game, and it's a rematch from Seattle and Marshawn Lynch not running the ball in the key spot there, Russell Wilson throwing the interception. So I think there's going to be a little bit maybe, I don't think there's anybody on either of these teams that are anywhere, close to being on either of those sidelines during that game, but maybe a little bit of a chip on their shoulder coming in for the Seahawks, knowing like, hey, these guys robbed us of one years back. At least the fans are going to remember it. And maybe it gives them a little bit of an edge going into Super Bowl Sunday.
Joey, when we were kids, we used to watch Brent Musburger say, "You are looking live at the Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan." And he would talk about how Detroit would be holding court against Green Bay or Minnesota, or whoever it was. They'd have Phyllis George, and then they'd have a little segment where Irv Cross and Jimmy the Greek would go over which team has the advantage. And they had one was called intangibles: offense, defense, running game, passing game, intangibles. Is there an intangible that you can think of? Is Seattle close enough to where they're going to bombard Levi Stadium with the number of fans versus New England? Is there anything about the special teams in one side or another? Is there an intangible between this general manager and this general manager? Anything else that you can think of that we're going to find out and be nauseated by next Thursday or Friday, especially Saturday, with all the news that's going to come out? But is there anything in your mind's eye that goes, you know what, there's something about this game that really has me very intrigued, and it is one of my intangibles? Anything come to mind for you?
Well, I think there are a few intangibles, but the ones I'm thinking of all favor Seattle. Okay. Special teams. I think Now, don't get me wrong, the Patriots do a great job of special teams because Mike Vrabel believes in special teams. They have a stud special teams guy. I can't think of his name. Made a couple tackles today. But I would give the edge on special teams to Seattle. Okay. Quarterback play. Normally, I would give it to Drake May, and I'm probably still giving it to Drake May. However, I think Sam Darnold has this thing on his shoulder that he's been chipping at all year, about this big play, about coming from the Jets, about seeing goals, about going to Carolina and being
and the mulligan, you get the one big career mulligan by having to play for the Jets, right? You get
that's what I said. Hey, that's a Sunday morning, but that's a morning ball. You get to tee it up again if you go to the Jets right now.
You get a mulligan.
So he went to Carolina, and then he goes to Minnesota, and he plays lights out in Minnesota. But still, at the end of his tenure there, guess what? It was Sam Darnold that didn't get us over the hump, because it wasn't the offensive line. It was Sam Darnold that didn't get us over the hump. So now you come to this year, okay? And his biggest nemesis was the Rams. I mean, he threw 6 total interceptions versus the Rams, 4 in one game, 2 in the next game. And in this game, when his best was needed, he probably played his best game of his career.
Clean slate, right? He had a clean slate, no turnovers.
Yep. So guess what? He's going into this game. He's going into the Super Bowl. He got them to the Super Bowl. He's going into the Super Bowl knowing that I could have the biggest resurrection story since the guy 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I've got something to prove. I've been doubted. I've been cast away from 3 different teams, and this is my opportunity. So from that standpoint, in my mind, all those intangibles are with Seattle going into this game.
And they favor Seattle for a number of great reasons. I appreciate you mentioning those. Thank you. And Brian, on the other side, it's business as usual. We bring a lunch bucket. We've got a thermos that could break. It could have broken glass in it because if somebody drops it. But we're patriots. We're tough. We'll drink the glass and chew on it. With a cup of coffee or whatever it is. They're a tough group of guys, and they've been rewarded for that. All the hard work that they do. Are there any intangibles or anything that sticks out in your mind's eye in terms of what the Patriots have? And it's us against the world, right? And we're going to take everybody else on. We've beaten everybody that we need to beat. We go to Denver. They got the best defense. Well, guess what? We got 3 points more than they did.
Yeah, I think that New England thermos is going to have a piping hot cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee in it, maybe a couple pastries on the side too. But, I think coming into this game, the big story is going to be both inexperienced quarterbacks, right? Neither one of them has been here before. Darnold obviously has the playoff experience from last year, but this is uncharted territory. And I think, it's the big story should be Darnold, because the team that he struggled against the most when he's with the Jets, and credit to him, no disrespect, but most teams struggled against the Patriots, right? There's a reason they won as many games as they did, but that team had his number for a number of years, and he struggled, and he couldn't find success, and he doubted himself, and he was second guessing. And there were instances where it's like almost like, get me out, the game's out of reach, get me out the field. I don't want to go back out. We'll restart again next week. But I think he's got a chance really now to exercise all his demons, to kind of put himself at the forefront and say, hey, I can win. Right now, the Patriots could very well come out and win too. And I think it kind of shows the importance of how both teams built their rosters differently. Like the Patriots said, we're going to go get a young quarterback. You could argue probably the second best player in that draft class. We're going to build around him. And Seattle was more so, we're going to build our defense, build our offensive line, bring in our weapons, then we can kind of plug in the quarterback we believe can lead us there. And it's 2 different play styles. It's 2 different ideologies. Both teams are here on Super Bowl Sunday. And I'm curious to see who comes out on top. And I think right now, like Joey said, I think Seattle's got the edge, but I'm not going to count out this Patriots team because they've played really well all season. And I don't think anybody had them here at this point. So, both these teams coming in kind of a chip on their shoulder. And I think both coaches have instilled in their guys, each person on those sidelines believes that they can come in and win this game, no problem. I think you're muted. We can't hear you. I think you're muted.
I was muted.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I had a cough and then I didn't turn my mute off. So please forgive me. Joey, I was just going to say, Seattle's their recent history. They had Russell Wilson for obvious reasons. He was getting a little bit older, long in the tooth. They go with Geno Smith recently. That didn't work. As Brian said, they kind of invested in their offensive line, which is oddly enough the first area that was depleted when Russell ended up getting that big contract, that first money deal that he got. They couldn't afford him and their 3 Pro Bowlers. They had to move people around. But then you give Sam Darnold not a boatload of money, but a boat full. There's plenty of money for him to do what he's done, and to really to set the pace in the direction. I don't know him to be the hardest working guy out there. I used to think Brady was that guy. I know that if I were in New Orleans, that if I had Drew Brees as my quarterback, man, you better do what that guy says, because he is the leader. Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, guys that I know of and have been around when I was playing. I don't know if Sam Darnold is that guy, but he's becoming that guy. I'm sure there's everybody on that roster. Just do what that man tells you to do, and we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think you lead in different ways. Some guys lead loudly. Some guys lead quietly. Some guys lead by their actions. Some guys lead by pulling guys over to the side. I mean, so leadership comes in different forms. But for Sam, I think you can tell his leadership by the way his teammates talk about him. Even when he threw the 4 interceptions in the game versus the Rams, there was not one teammate that didn't show their utmost respect in saying that Sam can get us where we need to go. Okay, this is a bump in the road. He can get us where we need to go. And the confidence they had in him by what they see in practice every day. Okay, those things, how he works through injuries. I think those are the things that, from a leadership perspective, that he shows that the public probably doesn't see. They don't know how, this injury, how, that he's dealing with now with the ab, that he's really fighting through that. His teammates see it every day in practice. According to the reports this week, all he threw in practice this week was short and intermediate passes. And I know in the first or second quarter, 3 times you see him go down the field. Okay, so if that's the case, he is dealing with some pain, obviously, because that's not an area you can really shoot up. So there are a lot of things from his standpoint that, the public that we don't see, that his teammates see, which tells you why every time they come to the podium and talk about Sam Darnold, it's always in glowing terms.
Yeah, and let's take a second for Drake May. You spoke about him earlier, Brian, but, the running game, New England's been able to run all year long. What are their numbers? They're 6th in the league in rushing for the whole year. Mac Hollins, who used to be with the Falcons a couple years ago and a former Raider, he's coming up big every now and then. Stephon Diggs is a guy that everybody in the league knows. He's a quality. Hunter Henry, tight end that can catch a ball over the middle. And then their defense, obviously, they get off the bus and they're ready to play. So a lot of leadership, maybe not so much with Drake May as being the head of it, but certainly he's a part of all the things that have made New England great this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with your quarterback, right? You can downplay it or whatever, but your quarterback has to be a leader, and you have to have a guy that, everybody else on the roster, they're going to rally behind. And, I think May's done a great job, especially as a younger player, right? A guy who's kind of come into his own, and very quickly he kind of became, I don't want to say a face of the league, but he's up there, right? When the Chiefs were struggling, and when, Josh Allen wasn't having a year that lives up to his standards, and, Baker Mayfield, who we talked about on this show as being, an MVP caliber player at, the first month or 2 of the season. Drake was very consistent all season. He kept his name in the conversation, and it's because he played very, very well. And when you perform, obviously it's a little easier, but everything in this offense revolves around him. Even when they couldn't run the ball, right? He is able to make plays with his legs. He's able to generate yards on the ground. He's made some spectacular throws. The throw he made, I think it was Kayshon Boutte in the end zone last week I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago against the Texans to seal the deal. It was a tremendous catch, but the throw was perfect as well. And it was, 2 phenomenal defenses. I think that's where the Patriots have a little bit of advantage, because they played the Texans and the Broncos before this. So obviously they played the first and the second best defenses in the NFL, and they didn't blink. They didn't flinch. And I think, like what I said earlier, I think Vrabel has these guys believing they could beat anybody. And talent obviously is a big key, but when everybody on the field believes that they are better than and can beat the guys across from them, there's a factor to that adds an element that you can't predict, right? And I think the Patriots, for that reason, that's the reason they're here. And I think, that's the reason why I like Seattle. I think they're the favorite right now, but I can't write off the Patriots when they got those guys. And Vrabel coaching them up.
Well, last thoughts, Joey. You've got guys in Cleveland, Las Vegas, in the Jets organization are going, geez, we're nowhere close. You've got Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Houston, as Brian mentioned, Indianapolis, who started out as hot as could be, and you said they may not win a game for the rest of the year. And goodness gracious, don't say that ever about me, because I don't want you to be as right as you were about them. But Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, you've got the Chiefs falling apart with injuries and getting old, and you've got the Chargers and all that. New England was able to get through all of that, and they represent just their side. They get to represent the AFC. The same thing on the other side, obviously, with Seattle. So much competition and all that, and they get to play. We won't be on next week, but just final thoughts from you before we head out. We'll be on in 2 weeks after the Super Bowl is over. But in the meanwhile, celebrate how tough that is to get through all of that, just to be able to represent your conference, and what an accomplishment that is.
Well, I think the Patriots got to this point by being kind of under the radar. No one expected the Patriots to be where they are today. Even the owner, when he got on the stage this evening after they won the AFC title, his comments were, no one expected us to be here. And he intimated, not even me, only you guys expected you to be here. So they felt like they were ahead of schedule, because they're such a young team, but they have a dynamic coach. They have a dynamic coaching staff. They have a coaching staff with a plan, and really a coaching staff, a really good coaching staff, should be able to get you at least 2 additional wins to what you were supposed to get. Okay, and I'm not sure how many they were supposed to get, but they're going to the Super Bowl, and they're young at a lot of different positions. I think going into this, only 1, maybe 2 players had ever been to the playoffs that's on that team. So this is all new territory. Everything they did from the time they walked into the playoffs this year to now going to Santa Clara for the Super Bowl is all new territory for them. So they're ahead of schedule. Now, they aren't going to rest on that. They're going to do all they can to win the game, because guess what? They have a head coach, an offense coordinator, and probably 2 or 3 other coaches that have been down this road before, that knows what it takes. But you can lead that horse to water. It's up to them to drink it. So they can tell them everything they need to do, but they aren't playing. They got to put it in the hands of these young kids. And guess what? We'll see if the bright lights from the Super Bowl will be too big for these young guys. On the other side, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm please continue. Go ahead.
On the other side, you have a more veteran team that feel like they've always had a chip on their shoulder, especially starting with, I go with the quarterback. He's got a chip on his shoulder. You have a defensive lineman who was at the Jets, got a chip on his shoulder. You got a defensive lineman from the Cowboys that's playing with a chip on his shoulder. And the thing that I like about Seattle's defense is they are inside-out rushing team. Most of the teams that the Patriots have played, they had dynamic outside rushers. Okay, these guys are dynamic inside pass rushers. So they're going to get the quarterback off the spot. They're going to get him running. And guess what? They have big safeties. They have big corners. So from that standpoint, I think defensively, Seattle has an advantage, because they're a different team than what the Patriots have seen all year, from the way they rush, their rush schemes, and the way that the head coach calls the game. So it'll be really interesting how this game plays out. Again, if I'm predicting, I'm taking Seattle because I just think they're ready to win this. I think the Patriots may come in and say, we're ahead of schedule, and the players won't say that, but ownership and other people will say that, we're ahead of schedule, we'll be back. And obviously, there are no guarantees you're ever going to come back. Dan Marino went in the second year, never made it back to the Super Bowl.
Nope,
so
he did not.
That happens. But I just think Seattle is more ready to win the game this year.
Just an interesting point. You got Andre Tippett, let's say, or Bob Kraft, who has so many rings that he probably can't even count them on. A friend of mine, when I was here in Atlanta, Stacey James, was just kind of an intern, and he'd come from Seattle. He stayed at our house, and now he's been the media coordinator for the Patriots for all those years. And I tease him every time I talk to him. I go, you got more diamonds than Tom Shane. It's just amazing that the organization has done so well over the past 25 years. And even though they lost to the Bears in '85, they got there. But then, their prowess for the last 25 years is unheralded. It's amazing. But Brian, Joey mentioned the coaching and everything with Seattle and how they're driven, and with New England, a veteran organization in Seattle. And Mike Macdonald's still a young guy. He's not Pete Carroll. Pete took him to 2 Super Bowls, but now you've got this young guy. Obviously, his resume is just blistering right now with all the success that he's been able to do as a play caller, obviously as a motivator of men, and now a guy who can say, I'm one game away from being a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, it's interesting, kind of the youth infusion, right, with a lot of these organizations and how it really has paid off. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you can talk about Kraft, you can talk about the Patriots and how well they have built it, but Seattle's done a really good job as well. Over the last 15 years, as far as success, there have not been very many teams that have had the amount of success that the Seahawks have had. And, I'm going to give them a little bit of credit too, because they're playing the same division with the Rams, with the 49ers. They're playing against some very good football teams. You can go back even the, late 2000s, early 2010s when, even the Cardinals were a good football team when they had Fitzgerald and Bolden and Warner. And they've still found consistent success. They've been able to plug guys in. They've been able to bring in the right coaches. They draft really, really well too, which is something that's underrated for them. They've done a phenomenal job being able to scout and bring in the right guys to help them win football games. But I think as of right now, if you look at how to build a team, I think Seattle and New England right now, they're kind of the staples of what it takes to build a championship caliber roster. And I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of teams are going to be trying to copy them. And I know it's very, very difficult to get a quarterback like Drake May in the door, but Sam Darnold a couple years ago was a castaway, and the Vikings saw something in him. They brought him in and believed that he could help them win football games. But at the end of the day, they chose J.J. McCarthy come into this season over him going forward. So I think that's kind of says something. Seattle was chomping at the bits to bring him in. They took a gamble. It's paid off. I think both of these teams have done things the right way, albeit a different way, right? They've taken different paths, but it intersects here, and I think it's going to be a tremendous matchup between two very, very good teams, two very well-coached teams, two very well-run organizations on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, there's so much to discuss over the next couple of weeks, but we want to say congratulations to the Rams and the Broncos for having a fantastic season. There's nothing for either one of those organizations to be disappointed in. Yes, you lost close games, but by a total of 7 points in the 2 of those games. But you lost to some great teams, and someone had to win. And unfortunately for you guys, it turned out to be the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. So the rest of the league will celebrate that as well. We do here at 100 Yards of Football. We appreciate it. So for Joey Clinkscales, for Brian LeBel, I'm Harper LeBel saying thank you very much for tuning in. This has been one last edition of the NFL Wrap-Up Show, and this is the championship version. And our champions now for the AFC are the New England Patriots, and for obviously the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks, and they will play in Super Bowl 60 at Levi's Stadium there in San Jose in 2 weeks. So we just want to say thank you for tuning in, everybody. Please like and subscribe to the show, tell a friend. And in the meanwhile, we hope that you have